Welcome back to another edition of the Fried Egg Golf Podcast. I am your host, Andy Johnson. Today, we have a jam-packed episode that is going to center around the Solheim Cup. First, I will be joined by Meg Atkins from our team, who will be on the ground covering the event. We're going to just kind of touch on the big storylines, see what she's excited to watch, and just kind of talk about the Solheim Cup in a broader sense. Then after that, I am joined by Robert Trent Jones Golf Club's superintendent, Scott Furlong, to just talk about his career, RTJ, what the golf course is, what we should expect for the Solheim Cup, and, just being a superintendent at RTJ. So super exciting episode. This is an amazing week of golf, just in general with everything going on. I'm floored to have this late September windfall. So let's get to Meg, and then we'll get over to Scott. This episode is brought to you by Toro, the only brand with a full line of equipment and irrigation products to keep your golf course in top condition. Toro is serious about R&D, and they're always out there listening to superintendents so they can develop products that can help you solve your biggest challenges. And when it comes to local service and support, their distributor network is second to none. See how Toro is always solving and always evolving at Toro.com. All right, let's get to Meg. Meg, Solheim Cup. We've got the, back to back. Once we'll get back on the alternating schedule, but the Solheim Cup this week. Super exciting week of golf. I like when the schedule makers came out with this week. It's kind of insane. It's like jammed. You have Corn Ferry Finals. You have Irish Open at Royal County Downs. You have Solheim Cup at RTJ, and then you also have the start of FedEx Cup Fall at the Procore. You will be on the grounds in the DC area at RTJ, covering it in person. What are you most excited about from just a sheer being there in attendance for the first time at a Solheim Cup?
Yeah, I'm excited to see, I've already seen pictures of the build out of the first tee, but I am very excited for that first tee environment, with it being, home game for the Americans. You got DC in the backdrop too, not too far from the nation's capital. So expecting, it looks like the crowds have been out for kind of the practice rounds too. And I'm most excited for just that atmosphere Friday morning when things kick off. It's going to be great. And, second thing, these Solheim Cups have delivered amazing theater the past few times around. I'm hoping we get another close one. I think we will get another close one. So that back and forth and that, the flip of matches on come Sunday, and not really knowing, what at one point it looks like it's going to be this, and then half an hour later everything's changed. You just don't get that excitement anywhere else except for these events. So those are probably the two things, that Friday morning kicking things off, and then if it's close, Sunday will be a blast.
Yeah, I feel like that was the way last year's went. It just like that match, kind of the momentum in it flipped so dramatically. And obviously, I think that the huge storyline going into the week is the Americans and their kind of lack of success. It's very similar to the Ryder Cup. It feels like the American team has just kind of generally let down in terms of expectations and the talent. I think there's a kind of a talent disparity between the American team and the European team. One of the things I'm excited about, just in general, is that I'm pretty excited to see RTJ. It's a golf course I don't know a ton about. We've got in this episode the back half with the superintendent Scott Furlong, but like that golf course is one that hasn't gotten a ton of coverage. It's been involved with professional golf for a while, but it's been renovated pretty extensively by Kyle Phillips, and I'm excited to see it on TV. I think it could be a low key, really good course and an atmosphere for the event.
Agreed. The pictures that I've seen And from what we had Stacey Lewis on the pod a few weeks ago. The advantage you talked about, the advantage on paper for the Americans, just in terms of world rankings, their strokes gained categories. We beat the Europeans in every main strokes gained category. So that, I think, is going to play an important part because RTJ is a ball striker's course. Shane Bacon is on the grounds the past 2 days. I heard from him that it sounds like Stacey Lewis is going to be able to put her thumb on the scale a little bit more than we've seen in past Solheims. And I think we'll see it stretched out and have it played pretty long and difficult to play into the hands of the Americans. They don't want it too difficult. What Stacey said is you don't want pars winning these, you don't want it to be a slog fest. The rough's not going to be too tall. Sounds like they cut it down over the last weekend. So I think, the course, hopefully, if you're Stacey Lewis, that's an advantage for your team and in the ball strikers that she does have on her team.
Yeah, I mean, the top end talent between Korda, Vu is just, that's something I feel like the European team doesn't really have. They don't have the horsepower that the Americans have. But that being said, weird stuff happens when you play match play, and especially these team competitions. They have a way of golf's a little bit more random sport than most, and when you get these head to head match play competitions, it's just fun to watch. The chaos. Who's one player on each side that you're particularly keen to watch this week, and why?
I think I'll start with the European side. You have, Leona Maguire has just come out of the gates these past two Solheim Cups full force. You don't want to see her if you're playing her on singles or in the, foursomes or four balls on Friday or Saturday. You don't want to see her ever if you're on the other side. And how, with how close these have been, she has been absolutely critical to them with their success recently. 7-2-1 is her record, which is just insane. She wasn't playing. I mean, she hasn't had that great of a year. So
yeah,
this goes to your point.
That's an interesting thing, right? She hasn't. It's been a very disappointing year for her, and but she's been this killer in the Solheim Cup.
Right. And I think that's the big question is she going to be the Leona that we've seen this year, or is she going to be the Leona from Spain last year? I think that on Sunday, when we're, analyzing what happened over the past Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, what's gone on, what we've seen over those 3 days, if Europe is on the losing side, you're going to probably the first person you look at is going to be Leona Maguire. And if she doesn't get her, 3.5 points, which is so many points for one player to be responsible for, I think she's going to need all of that for them to come out on top again.
So, struggle of a year, but you know what her best finish of the year is?
Was it recently? I mean,
it was the match play tournament. She finished second.
That's
play.
Right.
So
yeah,
just like, I mean, it could just be like she's just like a match play assassin. I think like everybody would say it's fluky, it's this, it's that, but I do really believe that there are just certain people that thrive in match play. That it's easier for them to mentally grasp or mentally, succeed when they understand that it's a singular opponent and they're playing one person. I think it's also for some players, that's a really difficult thing to get used to when you've been used to, everybody that we're just playing the golf course and I'm building this building. I think it's a interesting concept. And I think like the data people will never have enough data to where they say, like, they'll just say it's course fit. It's just fluky. It's small sample size, but like we aren't ever going to have enough data to reach a significant point, but it's a completely different dynamic as a player playing match play versus playing stroke play. In stroke play, you're trying to build like a foundation to your house early rounds. You're trying to just stay in the tournament and give yourself a chance on the weekend to be in contention and have a chance to win. Like you're limiting mistakes, all this stuff. When you switch over to match play, it is like your strategy should be different. You should play a little bit more aggressive because the double bogeys hurt you less. And I think like I would be really interested to see with the statisticians and team competitions and like if strategy does get tweaked for match play, understanding that like, hey, there is, if you're playing especially like best ball partners, like you should be very hyper aggressive,
Yeah, I think that mindset switch from 72 hole marathon to 18 hole sprint, Leona's excelled at that. To your point about the data, like the data does not love Leona. She doesn't hit it long, but I will not be surprised if she's pulling out those, deadly hybrids of hers and just putting stuff from, she's not long. She's going to be, that's what's so tough about Leona is, off the tee, great. Everyone hits it in the fairway. The precision game of the LPGA and the women's game, everyone's there. She's the first one playing into these holes, most likely. She pulls out, 4 hybrid and sticks it to 10 feet. And then the pressure's on, you're 40 yards ahead of her if you're Nelly Korda, but she's got a good chance of birdie. So the game, the data is not going to like her for this course, but I'll be surprised if we don't see the Leona that we've seen in these past 2 Solheims.
I think that's the other dynamic about match play that's tough is that like that there's a mental side of players that hit or that are shorter that they all of a sudden, I know it's a disadvantage data wise. It's a disadvantage to be a shorter hitter. And this can work either way. If you're the shorter hitter and somebody keeps putting in the fairway 40 yards ahead of you, it can be adds pressure to you. But if you hit great approaches and your approach play is on, being the shorter hitter, you put an enormous amount of pressure on the long hitter because they are constantly looking at you give them no hope unless they make birdies. Like they all of a sudden get to this point where it's like, okay, they have another 15 footer, like they have another 20 footer. They aren't going to make worse than a birdie or worse than a par. And I have to hit a really good approach just to have a chance. And I think that's the fascinating aspect of match play. And what I love about the women's game is it's a much wider range of playing styles. And I think what match play is such a good format for is showcasing how different playing styles interact and can play against each other. And I think that's going to be something that's fascinating to watch this week. Who's your American woman that you are particularly keen to see?
Yeah, I to your point earlier, I do think the top Lily Avu and Nelly Korda is bearing most of the weight and the pressure of this team. I don't think we've ever had number 1, number 2 on our side. So outside of those two, though, I really I'm intrigued to see the rookies. I'll cheat a little bit and I'll give you 2 here.
Okay.
In Lauren Coughlin and Sarah Schmelzel. Lauren Coughlin's going to be a great fit. Just strikes the ball so well, and her putting has made leaps and bounds this year. She's the best player current form wise with the past 2 months that she's had. So I'm really interested to see how Stacey Lewis plays her and Sarah Schmelzel, where exactly they fit in. I think it's a big miss from, the mental side of things, from the intangible side of things. If you don't put Lauren Coughlin out Friday morning somewhere in foursomes, I don't know if the data spells out that she's, going to be better fit for foursomes or four ball. But with their home crowd, she lives an hour away or grew up an hour away. Like, I think that's going to get the crowd going Friday morning. I think you got to put her out early. She's going to be fired up. She's going to want a first crack that morning. She's not going to want to sit around all day as a rookie. So who she pairs up with, though, is interesting because last year, Nellie Corden, Allison Corpuz, and Lexi Thompson and Megan Kang went 4-0 in foursomes. So if you're Stacey Lewis, I feel like you probably got to run that back in some way, shape, or form. Maybe not completely, but that last year was the most successful the Americans have been at foursomes. Maybe Stacey Lewis pairs Lauren Coughlin and Sarah Smelgel up together. That's what Suzanne Pedersen did last year with Maya Stark and Lynn Grant, and put them out first on the tee, first match of the competition Friday morning. I don't think Stacey Lewis is going to do that. I think that's putting quite a bit on the rookie's shoulders to go out first, but maybe that loosens them up a little bit and they feel a little bit less pressure because they're a 2 rookie team and they might not feel as much pressure. I'm really interested to see how much they play because they're rookies, but they're older rookies. They both have been on tour. They're not. This isn't their LPGA rookie season.
Both
They've been out there a while.
Yeah, both in their 30s.
Right.
Just to speak to Lauren Coughlin's like kind of meteoric rise. I mean, she started this year at one point in March was ranked 103rd in the world.
Yeah.
She is now ranked 14th in the world. It's pretty incredible. I don't know exactly how many points she's earned, but I would guess like based off of like Rolex ranking points earned in this year, she'd probably be a top 5 player. Which is wild. It's been she's been outstanding, and I have to think like so much of these team competitions is form. You know, like golf is a variable sport, and you can kind of throw a lot of times rankings out the window, and it's more about like current form. She's your best player. She should, one of your best players right now. She should be going out a lot. And I think like that's like it's a mistake if she's not out a lot. I think we hold on to this rookie thing way too much in terms of like, can they handle the pressure? It's like, you know what? At the end of the day, it's golf, and it's probably the similar pressure that you feel if you're trying to win a tournament, teeing off the first tee on Sunday, and a similar feel to a major championship. So put your best players out there who are playing their best early and often. So, what's another storyline that you're looking for this week? What's something that is compelling to you?
Yeah, I think what's compelling and obviously the main storyline is the United States trying to get the cup back for the first time since 2017. I'm going to play, glass half empty. Let's look ahead to Sunday afternoon. The Americans have lost the cup again. It looks really, really dire for 2026. You're going to the Netherlands. There's not going to be much familiarity for anybody on the team there. Lexi's has announced her retirement. Allison Lee is the only one on the team this year that's been part of a winning United States Solheim Cup team. So you're going to go across the pond, you're to the Netherlands with not a single person on your team having experienced winning. And it's something that Stacey Lewis talked about is that, yeah, there's the pressure to pull it out this year, but there's also, she just wants the players to experience winning because it is, every single person who's been a part of these winning teams, it's a highlight of their career. And none of them, except for Lexi and Allison Lee, have experienced that. So if it's the Euros again on Sunday, it looks pretty bad for moving forward. Is it task force time? Do you blow things up and build it back from the ground up? What does it look like? Who's your captain in 2026? It's not going to be Stacey Lewis. She's done 2 of these in 2 years. And I think she's done a great job as a captain. Like these Solheim Cups just come down to, the tiniest of differences in the teams. It's especially dire if the Europeans bring back Katrina Matthew, captain extraordinaire, who just got the win for GB&I in the Curtis Cup a few weeks ago, and she's won multiple Solheim Cups. So that's a storyline. Get ready for the debate on what is wrong with the Americans in the Solheim Cup if things go sourly on Sunday.
Yeah, it would be wild to think that if they lose, that Nelly Korda would have played in 4 Solheim Cups and lost every single one of them.
Yeah,
You
it's
know,
not
and
good.
and she comes into this one with like a very good winning percentage. She's at 62, and she's 7-4-1 coming into this. Like, and that's like the thing I think is like, we saw the Americans struggle in men's golf for years, but it was like, oh, Phil and Tiger weren't that good. Their top player is playing well, is putting points on the board, and I think that there needs to be players like Rose Zhang that need to step up. I mean, last Cup she didn't win a match. Like, those are the types of players that need to step up and win some points, because one player cannot win it. We've seen what a great performance from I don't want to call Leona Maguire a middle of the road European player, but like not their superstar player. What a great performance from, that's what the American team needs, that they haven't had in the last few cups, is that kind of like surprise great performer.
Yeah, and I think what's important is you almost need 2 people to do that. Like last year you had Leona, but you also had Carlota Saganda, 4-0.
Yeah.
And we kind of got that last year with Megan Kang. Very good LPGA player, but she took it to another level in Finca Courtesan. She played wonderful. She and Lexi were probably our MVPs. But you didn't have Lilia Vu play well. You didn't have Rose Zhang play well. And I think you're going to need one of them along with Nelly to really exert themselves as the leaders of this team.
All right. Anything else you're watching for this Solheim Cup?
Yeah, I'm wondering if we're going to have some chippiness, some controversy. It's happened before. It's happened recently. I wrote about in the newsletter the 2015 debacle with. Then she was playing a player on the European team, captain now Suzanne Pedersen. The quotes from that and like looking back at that are wild. Like, everyone was ganging up on her for not conceding that putt. You had Charlie Holt and Allison Lee in tears after the match. You had Laura Davies just, annihilating her on Sky Sports and saying she's glad she's not part of the team. And, it fired up the Americans and they rallied from 4 back in singles. Then in 2021, you had the Madeline Sackstrom and Nelly Korda controversy with Nelly leaves a putt, it's hanging on the edge, and Madeline scoops it back to her, gave it to her, but because she didn't wait 10 seconds to see if it was drop, which it was not going to drop. It was on the edge, but it wasn't one of them that, it's going to fall in a couple seconds. So because she didn't wait 10 seconds, they lost that hole. Madeline was very upset about it. She said, I would have never scooped it if there was a chance it was going in. It wasn't going in, but the rules are the rules. So you've had a couple of these with the gimmies, the so-called gimmies. And I maybe we'll see someone pull the JT move and measure if we're getting a little stingy with the putts given. With how close these have been, and the margin for error being so slim, it's not surprising that we've had some dust ups. Maybe we'll see it again.
Yeah, I think this is the best part about match play, is that you get these, like, a lot of the most memorable moments on the PGA Tour came from the match play. The Ryder Cup, the Solheim Cup have delivered us like moments of chippiness, rivalries. So you get people fired up because you're playing a person, you're not playing the course. It becomes much more like a lot of other sports. Like, I mean, I just finished a couple of weeks of watching the U.S. Open, the tennis U.S. Open, and it's amazing when these players get upset at each other. Like, it's because it's a personal match. There becomes this rivalry that you kind of miss week in, week out with 72 holes of stroke play. So that is a great one to call out. I think like one thing I always think about when the Solheim Cup comes is that why don't we have a way to integrate more of the world and more of the best women in the world into a team match play format that could capture kind of the off years of the Solheim Cup. I know that they've done the what's
The international crown.
the
Yeah.
international
Yeah.
crown, but I don't think that's really taken off. It's kind of been like this it gets kind of lumped into the LPGA schedule, and I
Right.
just think that there's got to be something, and maybe it's as simple as the Olympics having a team competition. I think that would be something that's fascinating. It's so much more of a global sport than men's golf, even. There are a number of really good countries and representatives from countries. I think we're just missing the boat on team golf competitions in the women's game, because I do think the Solheim Cup is one that takes women's golf to a different echelon.
It's a huge miss. I think one of the it's kind of this may sound hyperbolic, but it kind of is, it's a travesty that we have never seen Lydia Ko in any sort of high stakes team match play event. All we've gotten in her decade of a career is her and Jason Day in the hit and giggle Grant Thornton in December, which she won, which Jason Day raved about her short game, raved about her as a partner, and that's all we got.
I mean, why wouldn't you rave about her if she's bringing all the snacks? She's a great partner.
It's a whiff. You're right about that.
It just seems too easy and too like, I think like it has like the kind of the opposite of what's interesting to me is like the Solheim Cup rolls around, and I don't mean this to be like a critique, but every time the Solheim Cup comes up, I'm kind of like, well, it'd be great if like all the best women were playing in this event, but like the reality is it's like a fraction of the best women. You have like 3 of the top 10 players in the world, maybe 4. But like, where's like of the top 20, you have, roughly 20% of the top 20 in the world. Like, can we get an event that has all the best women in the world playing match play? Like sign me up for that. Like, and make it a spectacle like you have do with the Solheim Cup. Like, I just like, to me, like everybody is looking at what Caitlin Clark, and Chicago Sky great Angel Reese, got to put that out there as a Chicagoan. I ride with Angel Reese. However wrong I might be, I'm a Chicagoan, the Sky culture. But anyways, yeah, everybody's looking at what they're doing, and it's like, okay, women's golf can do this. They have to put themselves into the position to do it, and right now they aren't. And like, that's maybe it's even more frustrating than watching, like, this is a really compelling version of the game of golf. This is like different. It has the ability to maybe be more popular than the men's game, but the organization that runs women's golf, to me, is doing nothing to take advantage of their sport. It is almost like they are going out of their way to hold the sport back with their decisions on scheduling golf courses and just like in general, not thinking of an innovative team format that could be your most popular event.
Yeah, I'm with you. It seems in a lot of circumstances they're content with being PGA Tour Lite.
Yes.
In some cases, that's good because you don't have some of the bulk and you're not bogged down with, say, not as many events. That's a good feature of being PGA Tour Lite, but it's really bad in so many other circumstances that you've kind of saddled yourself with an organization that's not run well, that has many problems, from just the structure of it. And it seems like they're content to kind of follow along in what the PGA Tour has done in a lighter fashion. And in my opinion, you have to go out on your own. You have to take some risks. You have to differentiate yourself if we're going to see the growth that other women's sports have seen.
Yeah. I'm excited. Hopefully, I think this is obviously having Solheim Cup back-to-back years. It's a nice thing for the women's game because of the spotlight, the attention, the popularity of the event. I think this is gonna be a great event, and I'm super excited. And hopefully, I think the biggest thing is just to deliver some really big moments that break through into the greater sports culture and sports world. That is hopefully what happens this week. Have a great tournament and have a few moments that really capture the bigger audience.
Yeah, I can't wait. It's going to be a very fun few days. I'm so excited to be there in person, and yeah, it's going to be a good time.
Meg, how do people? You're going to be writing for the newsletter. What else? You're going to be on social media. How can people follow you?
Yeah, we'll be. Brendan's going to be there a little bit too as well, so we'll have it covered pretty well from all sides of things. Twitter, Meg Adkins _TFE. Let me check that actually. I should know that by heart. Yeah, Meg Atkins _TFE. I'll be posting from my personal on Instagram as well. But yeah, mostly Twitter, newsletter. Be writing some stuff for the website as well. Potentially some podcast stuff. So we'll get it covered from all angles.
Awesome. Thanks, Meg. Have a great week out there, and we'll talk to you soon. All right, big thanks to Meg for coming on before she gets out to RTJ. Before we get to Scott, I just wanted to mention this pod is brought to you by Toro. Did you know Toro has a full line of work vehicles? Whether you're hauling materials, towing equipment, or shuttling VIPs, Toro has a vehicle for just about any need. Their Workman series is your go-to for power and payload capacity, and the Vista series is perfect for guest transportation with a super comfortable ride. Plus, Toro has tons of options to customize your work vehicle, including all-electric models, so check them out at toro.com. All right, let's get to Scott. Scott, I was reading your, a little bit about your background, and I think you've got a little bit different entrance into the turf world. You were a teacher. Elementary school teacher. How do you make the jump from a teacher to being a superintendent?
Well, thank you for having me on. First of all, excited about this. So the cool thing about this is my whole family is nothing but a bunch of teachers. So I just felt, when I was younger, that I'm going to follow their footsteps and teach. Come from a big family of teachers, so I really enjoyed that. And I started working at a golf course called Cedar Crest up the street during the summer, and just really got into it, like the outdoorness, the art of mowing grass, how it looks, the depth of it. We saw some of that back in the day, and just the science behind it. And in that article, it talks about the chairman of the Solheim Cup right now for Robert Trent Jones Golf Club, the vice president of the club, was the guy I ran into in that article, basketball court. And I was going to go work at another little golf course down the street. And he goes, "You can't do that. You got to go work at RTJ." So I met Glenn Smickley. I'm sure you met Glenn Smickley before. He's at the Cow Club. My mentor.
I'm going to see him tomorrow.
Oh, good. There you go. Great. The greatest guy in the world. He's done so much for me. But, I just knocked on the door. Back then, there was no cell phones. And started a friendship. And then as I was working here, I have to say Mike King was one of them. He's at Army Navy Arlington that's going to do the Junior Solheim Cup. He literally was like, "Why don't you do this? Why don't you go back to school and do this?" Because I fell in love with it. And Glenn put me, and this is what I really try to do here for the youth that we have come through here. Have them do a variety of things to see if they fall in love with it. If they rake bunkers every day, they're going to hate their job. But if they're doing a variety of things, and Glenn did that, the assistants then did that. I started spraying, I started changing cups, I started doing everything, and I was relying on it. And I just kept falling in love with it more and more and more, and I was nervous about the jump. Like, can I understand the chemistry, the soil science, and all that stuff? So I took a couple classes just to test myself at the local NOVA, Northern Virginia Community College. And I said, all right, I got this. And I decided after I finally got a job in Fairfax County where there's 400 applicants, I get the job. I'm coaching football at Centerville High School. And all of a sudden, I'm leaving that job that everyone was trying to get to go back to school. My wife didn't know what to say. She goes, "You're kidding me." And I went back to the University of Maryland, got my degree. And I just fell in love with this place, most importantly, but just the whole art of being a superintendent.
You said, a variety of jobs and like see if somebody falls in love with something. Is there a job in when Glenn gave you a wide range of jobs, was there a job that you were like, this is really cool, that kind of started that, love of doing this?
The whole thing was cup changing. So I still really enjoy setting. I don't do a lot of cup changing, but I enjoy setting up the club, the golf course for tournaments, the 3-day member guest, the club championship, member pro, member, giving it a variety. So he kind of put me in that role of doing setup. I wasn't a good golfer. I'm still not a good golfer. I love the game of golf. But trying to play the par threes, all different from the let's say the men's tees or the blue tees for us. The tees are anywhere from 65 to 6,800. And just playing the par four is different and the par five is different. Some reachable, some not. Having the front side reachable and the back side reachable. So I really got into that. And actually they joked on me that I put so much effort into it on setup on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And that's when I started understanding the game, what it takes, and that if you understand the game better, you can better serve your members and their guests. So that, and then also the sprays that he would set me up doing, and he was so quick with the math that I always wanted to catch him, make sure that we're not going to hurt the golf course. So I would always go and look at labels and start reading labels, and I encourage all my assistants and interns, because we have our intern spray here, to just open up a label, look at it. And I did that. So that's why I have the stuff on top of my head. I haven't lost my edge, after being here that long. Those are the two things: set up, understanding how to set it up, make it fun for the golfer, but then also, the sprays, which there's so much in the DC market. It's your life. It's your only life. If you don't get it and understand it, you're going to be dead and looking for a job.
We do events all over the place, and I would say that my favorite thing to do with our events is the setup. I think it's so fun. I think one of the things that golf misses a little bit is the art of the setup. Golfers come to their golf course and play the same golf course almost every day. They're creatures of habit. People are creatures of habit. They go to the same tee boxes, and if you control setup, you have the ability to kind of craft their experience. It's almost like if you were at a restaurant, and you didn't have a menu, this is what we're making today. This is what dinner, and it's such a fascinating aspect. I think it's one of the things with golf, and I think a lot of it has to do with the handicap system. Well, I played this tee, I need to enter my score. But I do think one of the big things that the vast majority of golf and golf courses miss on is the art of setting up the golf course different, knowing that you have people that, for the most part, most golf courses are regular play golf courses outside a resort and maybe upscale public, your munis to your clubs. It's just the same people playing the golf course over and over again. Why do we set it up so similar all the time?
Well, and the big events are important, but also the cool thing about working here at, RTJ, there's a mini member guest every day. They're bringing 2 groups, 3 groups. We have 12 cottages. Well, we don't have 12 yet. We have 9 cottages, and there's a lot of overnight. We have 12 rooms in the clubhouse. So they're bringing people in big groups. They want variety, and the good thing is Kyle Phillips has changed his golf course and done so many great things. He's everywhere over this golf course now, and changing tee angles, which we did. Just the angle of the tee, setting it up on the left side or the right side on a par 3 or a par 4 or par 5, changes everything. And as long as you're just not putting it in the middle, you're going to give that golfer. And we really work with the interns on that. But I'm happy to hear that it's important to you for setup, because there's nothing worse than playing the same golf course every day. Nothing worse.
Well, it's it's so fun sometimes, looking at a hole that's 350 and saying, I'm going to play the 280 tee today, and see what happens. Like, that's one of my favorite things when the little personal golf I play is like why would I play the same tee? Like, I like to just like change stuff up. Like, I like to see how holes play differently from different tee boxes. I think that's like one of the most fun aspects of playing a course regularly is the idea of seeing how different it can play in different fashions. You mentioned Kyle Phillips, obviously, Robert Trent Jones Golf Club, right? It is synonymous with one of, he's in the Hall of Fame, right? He's one of 5 architects in the World Golf Hall of Fame. How has the golf course, you've been there since 2000, how has the golf course evolved with Kyle Phillips? How have you been sensitive to the RTJ legacy while modernizing the golf course?
So the cool thing, I've been here since 1994 where I was teaching. So I worked this summer. So I've seen every change here besides maybe moving a tee box here or changing the fairway on number 8. But all major construction I've seen, which has been great. And, Roger Rollrich was the guy. He was doing a ton of work. He was the guy on site. It was a cookie cutter kind of, they've done it a billion times. This is what it looks like. You go to Matitacock, it looked like RTJ. There's a lot of detached bunkers. But with time, things changed, right? Architects change. And so over time, we found a need that some of these greens were so severe that, with stiff meter readings going up, you didn't have any pin positions. And I'm not talking like the Oakmonts, or even locally, it's like Chevy Chase, our friend Stephen Britton, where their greens are changing them all right now, but they were so slow that you couldn't get over 11.5 or 12. They were just too severe. So that was happening here. So we started making some minor changes, and we also got in bed with the PGA Tour. Dean Beeman and Ernie Ransom, VP Russell, they talked about doing a President's Cup. So we did the first President's Cup in 1994. And we got feedback from the players, which were already feedback from our members, too, on some of these severe holes. So our first big change was we changed between 94 and 96, we changed number 6. And Roger Rollrich did that. And it's a great green right now. After that, things changed and, Senior wasn't able to get around much. And so they looked at Kyle Phillips that had left and branched off of Jones Jr. He was finishing up a lot of Senior's projects as he got older. And he started his own firm. And that's when first of all, before that, with the PGA Tour, a guy named Chris Gray come in here and do a few things, and he made some modifications. But they were very careful in trying to keep it in character with the Jones design, the bunkering. Nothing that's going to go, whoa, what is that? And, we have maybe a little bit of that now, but over time we've kind of gotten into the groove of more Kyle. Anyway, Kyle came in 1997, I think, and we started changing a bunch of greens. And he was going through the Jones family, making sure everything was good. And ever since then, Kyle's been our guy because everything he's done, there's 3 people that have been so important in my life. Glenn Spickley, which we can talk a whole podcast on him. Bill Hutsmith, which he works for KCS Landscaping and Yellowstone, and Kyle Phillips. And the last 2 were the detail guys, and Glenn was all detail too. But they showed me what was out of place in landscaping, right? Kyle showed me what was out of place architecturally. And so this place, which so many golf courses back in the 80s were being built on the land, not in the land, on the land. And Kyle's got that. I mean, Kyle would change a lot more here, but he's always tried to keep it with the character of the Jones design. And he's changed a lot. I mean, there's a lot you go, that doesn't look like a Jones, but everyone here thinks it does, right? You follow architecture, you'd be like, all right, that's different. But everyone here feels that they would have no clue that Kyle Phillips did some of this work.
It's got to be one of the most unique setups in terms of, renovating, in terms of Kyle's position there, just with the golf club literally named after the architect. Like, there has to be so much sensitivity in the work and trying to retain a lot of that. It's not a situation where you can just, make it feel completely Kyle Phillips. Even though it might over time, like it might evolve to that, but there has to be some kind of ode to the past in terms of the While let's stay on the course for a bit. What do you think is going to make RTJ such a fun match play course for the Solheim Cup?
So, the great thing about this golf course is it's a driver-friendly golf course. You're never going to get on the tee and sit there and go, oh, I don't hit driver here. Maybe because of the bunkers, but out of bounds on the left and the right. We have no houses around us. We don't have any border. We have a border, which is the lake, which is a red hazard. We put Kyle back when he came back he's come back a bunch of times. In 2014, we redid all the bunkers because they weren't in play anymore for the pro and for the players. And now there's variety off the hole, and whether you want to hit a 3-wood or you should hit an iron off. But the par 5s and down the stretch, we got beautiful par 3s here that have different angles, beautiful, scenery there. We have big greens, right? Big greens. They're talking about playing the greens a little bit slower. We're still working through that right now. They all say championship speed. Well, what's that? We can all argue that. But we have big greens, and there's a lot of shot making here. You're not going to see people hitting out of the hay, unless if they're really spraying. And these women, I've seen them play enough now. They basically like Freddie Funk, right down the middle. You put a hula hoop out in the middle of the fairway, and they're going to hit it. But we have some good risk reward stuff on the back where we got a short par 5 on number 12. We got another short par 5 on number 14 that's over water. So just really fun stuff coming down. And this course, we can narrow the fairways and beat it up and beat people up. That's not what we're here to do. We don't want anybody to shoot if it was a medal play 30 under, okay? But we want people to have fun. We want people to see birdies. And I think there's going to be a bunch of them out there.
I think that's one of the things I like the most about these match play competitions. And I think like one of the things that I'd like to even see more of is like the idea of these match play. The most compelling aspect of these is when it's fireworks, when you have like everybody remembers the Rory Reid start to the Ryder Cup where they were trading birdies. That I think it was Sergio and Phil played a match where they each made like 8 or 9 birdies. Like when you have these matches and there's lots of birdies, it makes it really fun. And the setup should accentuate variance in scoring. That's what you want to do, is you want to push score. You want to have a wider range of scores. So I think the setup should really kind of amplify how can we get a lot of birdies, but also like push out that range of potential scores.
Yes.
And I think more width and shorter rough does that, because you might get flyers that could lead to doubles and stuff like that. What's a particular favorite hole that you're excited to watch, and maybe give us a little bit of a breakdown of how the hole plays?
So I'll pick the hole in a second, and I really wish every match was going to get to it. But first I'll say the first tee. The first tee is amazing. I put something on Twitter, and someone said, "Oh my God, I've never had more than like 40 people like anything I've ever done in my life." And I think there's like 300. I'm like, so of course I'm joking with everyone. I'm going viral, but number one hole. I went to Spain and I went to Rome. I wasn't there for the Ryder Cup. I went there to support the superintendent, Laura, who's coming back here, the first lady superintendent ever, to host a big event like that. And she's coming over here to grace us and talk to our volunteers. But the number one first hole atmosphere is just amazing. It's insane. Like, and from what I've heard is they're the ones that started it. Solheim Cup started the music on the tee. They started all that stuff, and everyone else has followed suit with President's Cup and Ryder Cup. They were kind of the creator of that. So I think the first tee environment is going to be great. In Spain, they had, they moved it to like number 4, and they had a drivable par 4. Well, we don't have that. Okay. And then Inverness, they played it. I saw their bleachers. They didn't have near as many. We got 1,500 people sitting on there with 8 suites, 4 double stacked. And so we've got a ton of people there. But Inverness had their first tee and their 10th tee. They get to see them twice, right? So if you're there for the morning, you can see them come play, when they come back through in 2 hours. We don't have that. What we do have is this beautiful lake. You'd be hard pressed to find a more beautiful golf course in the world, I would say. And obviously this is my baby here. I've been here a long time, but just drove around. Pete Went from Congressional. He started here. He was an intern at Congressional, and then moved here as an assistant under Glenn Smickley. So we're all one big family. he just at all. I mean, just again, he hasn't seen it in a while. Just how beautiful this place is. So the beauty of it's great. But back to the hole that you're talking about. I know I'm just talking too much, but 18. It's my favorite hole that Kyle's done, and it's all Kyle. Kyle did all 1, 2 as well, so they're sitting right next to each other. We don't have a returning 9. And 18 is just the way he changed the tees. Back in the day, we were raising it up. We didn't have any money, so we're making volcano back tees, further back, because we didn't want to. All right, the forward tees blocking it. Well, let's go up higher, right? So we de-volcanoed everything there, and that green used to sit up on the up near close to the clubhouse, and he pushed it down there in the late 90s, and it's right on the water. Illegal too, by the way. I mean, right on the water. I didn't do that. Glenn Smith was the superintendent at the time, but it is just a gorgeous first shot, second shot, setting right on the water, green. I don't know if they're going to get there. But it's it's a wide open approach too. A lot of Jones, we open a lot of approaches. I think we're going to open even more. But a lot of Jones was force carry. This is not force carry. If you hit the right position in the fairway, if you're to center left in the fairway, you've got that wide open approach to run it up there because it's going to be a long second shot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it looks like the way that the hazards orient. I mean, there are some massive bunkers on the left side of the fairway. If you play close to those, it will give you a little bit of a better angle and cleaner entrance into the green. It's kind of a pure strategic golf hole in that sense of play close to this hazard, get the reward of an open shot into the green. You've spoken about Glenn Spickley a little bit. Pete Wentz been on this pod, and Stephen Britton. All, I guess, a good question for me is why hasn't Glenn Spickley been on the pod? But, all three of you have been on the pod now. All three of you have sung the praises of Glenn Spickley. What about his leadership, his mentorship really has helped your career?
So I was just a school teacher, right? So we played basketball, pick up basketball. We like to hang out. We like to make golf clubs back in the day, right? He never was pushing me to get in this business. He did bring it up a few times, like, hey, you did great at this. I mean, he felt like I was his best operator at the time, the guy keen for the detail, and then I think our personalities are a lot alike as far as a people person. I've always been called a people person. I can talk all day. Like Steven's one of those guys, and Spickley's one of those guys. Pete's Canadian, so I wouldn't want to talk to him for that long. But go from the East Coast to the West Coast. When Steven's gone for a job, I don't want to tell my secrets, but I've told board members, he's the guy, if you're interviewing, you're not going to stop talking all the way to the West Coast. You're not going to stop talking all the way back. And you're going to now have one of your best friends. And that's the way Glenn is. I mean, he was the guy that fostered all that. We worked hard here, but we also had a good time. We hung out after work. We went to concerts. We did a bunch of stuff. Our ages are closer too. Now my assistants are 25 years old. They're like my kid, which is great. And I get along. My 3 assistants are probably one of my favorite little teams I have in a long time. But Glenn was just there, supportive, always there for you. Never took himself too seriously, right? Never thought he was above the fray on anybody. But then I got to watch him, how he mingled with the membership, and then how he would go back down to the shop, and the guy that has substance abuse that lives on the mountain that can barely get to work on time, and how he manages that. And I watch how he did it with a soft hand, and then a firm hand when he needed it. I just was like that. It's not like sometimes there's learned behavior that you're either that or you're not that, right? And for the most part, I feel like I'm more like Glenn Spickley than a lot of other people that I know. And that's why I think we hit it off so well. And it was just, he was so encouraging when I commuted. I wanted to go to Penn State, but I just got married. I didn't want to get a divorce because, she divorced me. But she was a high school sweetheart. She already saw me go through Old Dominion. Took 5 years to get a 4-year degree, right? So I was on a long-term program.
You're a redshirt senior. I was a redshirt senior too. There's nothing wrong with being on a 5-year plan.
And we had a good time, right? I wouldn't change it for the world, but I commuted back and forth to Maryland University, so I got on that Beltway every day. I would come in. Pete Went was working here at the time. Everyone jokes, I'll say this on your podcast, everyone thinks that Pete worked for me, and I never fixed that river ever. I just say, yeah, he worked for me, but I actually worked for him. He was an assistant at the time, but I'd get the key, open up, change cups in the morning, get on that beltway, get around to Maryland, come back and work in the evening. I mean, I slept in class more than I studied in class or listened in class. And Glenn saw that commitment. And I'll never forget, we were going to the Jimmy Buffett concert to get tickets. And we stopped the car as we got the tickets and we're coming back. He's like, hey, you want to be superintendent RTJ? I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Where are you going? And he goes, I'm not going anywhere. I'm just moving to the clubhouse. So do an interview, go through the whole process, and the rest is history. And, he's changed my life. I mean, if John Coleman doesn't say, the vice president, the chair, co-chair of the Solheim Cup, he's the one that got the Solheim Cup here. He told me to go check out, RTJ. That doesn't happen. Glenn Smickley and I don't form a good working relationship. And my wife blessed me going back to school. I wouldn't be here. I'd be having a blast teaching and coaching, but I'm having a blast doing this. And I'm so thankful for the opportunity I was given.
How do you think your background as a teacher helped you in this profession?
I think it's the number one thing. I always look at people as people, and trying to wonder if they're okay. I try to read people. That's probably my one flaw or my one great trait. Is I'm always reading facial expressions, reactions, how they carry themselves, everything. I see whether someone's a little sheepish, and I always want to make people feel comfortable. There's too many golf courses out there that are military driven, and there's nothing wrong with it. They get their job done. They're great superintendents, and I won't name one of them. And there's also a competition, which competition is good at the golf course, but that can just be very, very. It could just beat on you, depress you, where someone's just trying to get over you, whether it's assistant or an intern. I tell my interns as they get in here, if you sit there and try to one up the other intern and you're not there to help him along the way and help him with his mistakes, I said, if you're trying to assassinate an intern to get, for me to look better at you and put you on a better pedestal, I said, you're going to get the worst jobs here. You're going to want to go. You're going to want to leave, and you're going to leave because I don't want that. I said, it's important that we treat people with common respect and make sure that they have a good time here because they're only here for a short period of time. And someone, an intern or an employee or an assistant, can make their world a living hell. And then what does that do for me? It makes our place look bad, and that rumor gets out there. So, it's all about people. And I think the teaching and the coaching, you're constantly teaching, you're constantly coaching, you're constantly trying to motivate. I'm not going down there doing rah-rah speeches, but I high five guys every day, hug them all. And I think that's the key. If I didn't have that teaching background or that teaching family, that's called, right? So I grew up, I watched that. So if, I just didn't all of a sudden become this teacher. I saw it through my whole, youth when I was younger. And, without that, I wouldn't probably be here. So.
Yeah, I imagine, I think I've noticed it as our company has grown, how much your job changes. And I could only imagine with a turf team, especially next week, you're going to have hundreds of people. It's not just going to be your team. You got all these other people organizing, and just everybody's motivated a little bit differently, and you have to understand what level of encouragement, it's just managing people is a fascinating and an extremely challenging task because of everybody's different, and you have to understand how people need what they need, and I don't think I'm necessarily great at it,
Yeah, well, you're talking about all these people coming in, we have 12 different countries coming, a lot of familiar faces, a lot of faces I don't know. What my anxiety right now, as I sit here and talk to you, is are they going to have a good time? Because look, there's not a lot of work with this, but we have a lot of work in the morning, and we need the 100 total people to be able to do that. If we get inclement weather, we won't have enough people. And then later on in the day, we're not trying to get 15 on the stimp, so we're not mowing later on. We're just prepping it for the second rounds on Friday and Saturday. And there's not a lot of divots, so there's not a lot of evening work. So I want them to be happy. We have a cookout on Sunday. My anxiety is making sure I got it right, that someone just doesn't walk up and we don't have a badge for them, we don't have clothes for them. We're like, wait a second, how'd this happen, right? I don't have a bed for them, right? Those are the anxiety. That's the anxiety we have, making sure we're putting people on proper jobs. I have all the volunteers. I hope they can mow straight stripes because we have stripes on tees and stripes on fairways. Our members want it. I try to get rid of them. They won't get rid of them. So I hope they can mow good stripes, or we're going to look a little funny with all these blurred lines. But I have them all on big jobs. There's obviously the bunker crew, but we have our first high school volunteer team. So they work with the GCSAA. We have 4 high school students from an agronomy-based high school that we get some students from. And Kaminsky from Penn State's talking about me sending those kids to tournaments. I can't send an underage kid to the Memorial. I can't do that. I mean, it's too young, but I can do it here because they're right down the street. So we're going to have some high school people here, which is going to be really good.
Are they getting out of school? They're getting a pass out of school? What a good gig.
They are getting out of school for the whole week. One kid said he can't miss a class in the middle of the day, so he's going back and forth.
I mean, high school, anything that gets you out of school is a good trade.
Yeah.
How does getting ready for this tournament differ from, a big club event from your perspective?
So besides being pulled in so many different directions, there's not much except for the fear of the camera turning on. So this was the worst summer, and I think if you talk to anybody in this area, we had an extreme drought. Our lake is down. You see it on TV. It's come up. We've gotten 2, 3.5 inch storms. That's not what you want, but in the last month and a half, that barely raised it up. That's how dry we were, and we went through crazy heat, right? Crazy heat. The great thing about this club gives us the resources. They understand that we want to be on the championship level as much as we can, with weather dictating that all year long. So I've got the resources to do it. So it's not like I need an extra budget of $200,000 to do this and that and this. I don't even know what I would do with it. We're fertilized up enough. We're covered enough for disease. But the ramp up is the same, I would say, except for the excitement on all the trucks coming, 18-wheelers, and all your forklifts driving all over your nice turf. The big focus is I kind of had a timeline, in the spring, we actually hurt ourselves a little bit because we went too dry during our inner club, which we have all the top clubs in the world, but like Marion's, the Oakmonts, the Wingfoots, they all come and do this tournament with us, Royal Montreal. And so we went so dry. Well, we recovered from that, but then we had to chase that. But I kept saying, guys, we need to guard away from the brown. We probably water a little bit too much, right? Because we want to get to the day the camera's on. And I told them about 2 weeks ago, I said, okay, anything you turn off color now, you're seeing on TV. So I've got the most unbelievable assistants with the most unbelievable staff, which is 20 H2Bs, which I wish the government would fix it. Don't audit me. You can't audit me. I do everything right, but please fix the H2B visa. It's the legal way. We're doing it. I got some great interns this year. They're going on to do wonderful things at Quail Hollow, LA Country. I got 2 ladies working this year, which is great. So those are the 2 ladies, LA Country Club and Quail Hollow. So, it is just a little bit more, but I'm an adrenaline junkie. I mean, there's nothing better than going to a Penn State game or a basketball game. I get jazzed about all that stuff. I'll be up at Penn State games a lot this year. This is adrenaline. There's a lot going on.
Might finally make the playoffs this year.
They might. I mean, Franklin's the best 2-loss coach in the country. So
they never beat anybody. They never win any big game.
Their last great game was I brought my 2 sons. My one son's going to school there. My other son's going to West Virginia. I brought them to the game when they beat Ohio State. And I said, this is the greatest game I've ever seen. I don't know if I'm ever going to see a better one. So
it's they're going to be. It seems like they're going to be in a playoff this year. The new expanded Big Ten.
Exactly.
4-team playoff league maybe.
Exactly. I hope they don't need the last extra. Well, the big one they got to get over is I think USC away, and then at home they got Ohio State, which is they're spending $20 million from what I hear. Penn State's spending $8 million. I mean, come on, that's a huge difference. I don't know if that's true or not, but
I saw. This is a divergence here, but I remember when we got to like the Elite Eight of the. I'm an Illinois fan, so when we got to the Elite Eight, they flashed something about how much UConn spends on basketball versus Illinois, and it was like astronomically more. Yeah. And it's just like crazy. It's crazy the way the college, all these college things. We need to have that for turf. Maybe you guys should start an NIL fund for turf students, and that would solve some of the labor issues, right?
Yes, it would.
Need to start doing that from the high end clubs. You know, that's how you could secure the future of turf. I'm curious, with you being at RTJ for 30 years, how do you think the industry has evolved?
So, the old adage was change where you put rest your hat or jacket, and you're going to keep making more and more money, and you get a different, scene and different people. And I'm probably going the wrong direction you want me here, but
that's okay. This is you're the guest. You get to pick which direction you go. I just ask the questions.
The one thing I'm trying to do is just hold on, and we've had some ups and downs with economy and stuff like that, but we really have, and we have adapted. The H2B is one of the biggest things that's stabilized, but then when we don't get them, it's chaos, and it's scary, and it just, your job's on the line. But, the big problem, and it's no one wants to do this job. No one wants to do this job. It's not an easy job. When you get to my level, there's a lot of stress, don't get me wrong, but there's so many great rewards. Whether it's someone telling you the golf course is great, or the golf course is great, or the problems you might have on a golf course and how you solve it, how you get it turned around very quickly. And no one wants to do that. No one wants to go through the long hours or 7 day a week, and we still give every weekend off. I have this weekend, we're working, everyone's working, but we had half the crew off last weekend. So, it's this work-life balance, which is very difficult for a superintendent to even understand, because we're in the service industry and we're open 7 days a week. And grass is a living, breathing thing. It's like, okay, we'll shut down the hospitals for a couple of days. It can't happen, right? The grass is going to get sick, or it's going to be happy, and we got to take care of it. So the problem is finding good quality labor. I have it with the H2Bs. I've got that solved. Then it's getting the interns, through Ohio State with Michael Keith. That's been great. I don't get any American interns. I do. I got a Virginia Tech guy. But I guess our name's not big enough, my name's not big enough, or they just don't want to move to old Gainesville, Virginia. I don't know. We offer a lot here. We send them to tournaments. We send them to majors. We do scholarships. We gave out two $5,000 scholarships. I mean, how crazy is that last year, right? $10,000 we gave out to students. We can change their life. But there's a lot that want to go. You see them like they want to go out west where it's a little bit easier. The hours are not as crazy. Unfortunately, and I always tell them when they come in here, look, this is the deal. You might not like this, but I don't want to hear on the first day, the third day, or the first month. When you leave, you're no, but what you want. If you want this standard or this pace, it's going to be your call, and you're going to be a free agent. And there's clubs that have a slower pace. There's also clubs that don't have less resources, and you're going to work harder than you work here. So the hard thing is just finding people that are in love with the place as much as I am and other people are. And that's my H2Bs have always got that, my full-time staff. It's finding those fringe guys, which is difficult.
I think like the work-life balance is probably the sticking point with the job. Especially as you look at the future generations. And this is kind of like a two-part question here. Do you think the potential for more autonomous technology that kind of like, might take away some of the mowing and put more of an emphasis on like handwork with your staff? And do you think autonomous could help work-life balance? And how have you seen, your assistants kind of have gone from millennials to Generation Z? How has the culture of your assistants changed over the years?
So, 20 some years ago, you're looking at me, Stephen, Pete, we're running around like crazy, doing everything to make everyone happy. And that kind of changed. You're right. That kind of changed. And I went through a period of time that, I had some guys that I didn't even know what to do with. I mean, I'm like, they didn't see the vision I had. They didn't care. They didn't, they would drive by a real spot. They'd drive by trash, drive by a weed. I picked weeds. And Pete took a picture. First thing he did was take a picture of the back of my car filled with crabgrass and goosegrass and sent it to all our buddies. Said the place is in trouble. It's nothing but weeds. Of course we're not, but I'm always picking. But the mowers, we have some Husqvarnas here that are doing great. And they do their job at 1 inch cut. But I just don't know where it's going to go. I know they got some fairway units. I can't imagine that greens ever going to be. They had those club cadet ones that, they had them at Cow Club, Glenn's, and they would turn. They had to move the turning boards. They had to do this because you can get wear marks. They keep turning in the same spot. And, what does that look like? It's a big race in our industry right now, which you probably have seen. It's a big race. The John Deere booth was packed. The Toro booth was somewhat, or both of them somewhat packed. You went to the Husqvarna booth, it was completely packed. And I saw everyone's looking at these things now just to try to take some labor away. And a lot of people now, clubs, are using contracted labor to do some of their stuff that's not on the golf course. So I don't know when it's going to happen. There's so many safety features that need to happen on these mowers that they're not going to be someone riding it. Right now we have GPS sprayers. That's revolutionized everything. It's reduced pesticide use. It's reduced error, which is great. And there's a product out there, I won't even name it, but that's looking at, checking moisture as a cart drives by and put a map on your irrigation to where it would adjust your irrigation to where you want it to be on a moisture reading. And if it can do that, then now you're talking about something sustainable, something better for the environment, less water being used. So everyone's going towards that to make the job easier, because guess what? Without labor, you can't do your job. And that's the hardest part of this right now. And it's everywhere. People can't find truck drivers. Everyone wants to be a doctor. Everyone wants to be a lawyer. Not everyone can be a lawyer and a doctor. Sometimes you got to be a superintendent, right?
And it's a job that's got really good perks. I think the hard thing, the job, I think is got a lot of great perks when you get to your level. It's the journey to that. That's the challenging part. But in so many other professions, it's the same thing. Like, if you can get to the top of the profession, it's a wonderful place to be, but it's not an easy thing to get to.
Yeah, agreed. And you're right. Because I never say, talk about, work-life balance. I never say no to my assistants. I never say no when they want time off. They work their tail off all year long. Well, during the season, but we don't do crazy work. When it's raining, go home, right? But if they want to take a 4-day weekend, they want to go. I mean, one just did a wedding last weekend, before this tournament. Go. And actually, in the winter, there's no reason for us to be pulling, 50 hours or 40 hours. It could be a 32-hour week for them. So there is the downtime, and they see that. I think they see that. The question is do they want the standards and the pace? Because there's a different pace when you get to the higher end clubs, and I would say that we're one of the higher end clubs.
You talked about this a little bit, but you're in the transition zone. How would you describe life in the transition zone as a superintendent? And what is the transition zone for somebody that might not know what it is?
It's hell every day. If you don't know what it is, it's living in hell every day, and fear of being in hell. Which, if you're in hell, you should be fearful. Without coming up with anything wittier than that, it is insane. It's a ride that some days you're up, some days you're down. One day you're a hero, the next day you're a zero. It's like, what just happened? We sprayed for Fairwing this year. I talked to Steve McDonald, who's a turf consultant, goes up and down the East Coast. I talked to him because he could never get out of here, so busy. And he goes, you couldn't spray anymore. So there's a point where you did everything you can here, and your hand side you can't do it. So it starts sometimes in May, gives you a little break, but really gets going in June. This year it started at the end of May and didn't stop. It did not stop, and we're talking 31 days. With a low being over 75 degrees, so the grass doesn't get a break. And it's cool season. Our Bermuda grass driver range tee looks gorgeous right now, just absolutely gorgeous. But cool season, it wants to die. And we have ryegrass, which is used down in Augusta. That's what their playing surface is. It's a transitional grass. Stan Zontek used to say it wants to transition off this earth when it gets hot, and that's what it does sometimes. So just trying to fight that to hold on, because of the nighttime temps. And the grass not getting a break. I'll tell this, if at 80 degrees, your roots are not growing. Nothing's growing. At 85, your roots are starting to die. So we call it in this region controlled death. So what you're doing is you're trying to control the death of the plant to get to what we have right now, which is just beautiful weather. I mean, nighttime temps down in the 50s. Usually it takes to the middle of September. So it's usually sometime in June to the middle of September, maybe get a little break. This is as bad as the summer was, is as great as the end of the summer, early, I guess we're not even in fall yet, has been to give the grass a break. But when it's in the middle of the summer, when we had 5 days over 100, we had stretches of, not over 90 degrees for 10 days in a row, and that soil temperature gets up to 85, you're controlling its death. You're trying to control its death. We had temperatures up to close to 100 in the soil. That means rapid death of your roots. And once you do that, the plant can't live. So you're just trying to get to that cold spell or that rain that will cool it off a little bit.
What do you do when it's like that? Is it just water to try and keep it alive?
Yes. A lot of times it's just spritzing. A little bit of water. We don't syringe much, but it's just cool off. I guess you can call it a syringe. It's funny. I was driving around with Pete this morning. We put all the fans out, we had fan problems, so they didn't turn them on. And I'm like, are we ever going to turn these fans on? It's 100 degrees, right? I kept driving around like, well, we're doing okay. I didn't want to jinx ourselves. So the number one thing for turf that's revolutionized turf is fans. I turned them off all summer because we weren't dying. So I was so superstitious that I'm like, if I turn the fans on, we might die. So let's not turn the fans on. So that's your summer. Like, it was so hot that we were debating when to mow. Like we usually mow fairways 2 to 3 times a week. We're going almost a week saying, all right, let's just try to find that one night that it's going to get down to low 70s, and then we'll mow that next morning. So it takes you out of your comfort zone. But you know what? That's what's great about it. That's what's awesome about the Mid-Atlantic area. Glenn lives in California, and he's wearing sweaters. He texts us all the time. Hey, put the sweater off. It's noon. It's the middle of July, right, in San Francisco. And he always says, you need to get out of there or you're going to die. You physically are going to die because of the stress. But when you get it right, and there's not always do we always get it right. There's been insects out there like the weevils that I might tear up if we start talking about the weevils because there wasn't enough product to spray. Now we have products. Now we don't have weevils. Thank God, knock on wood. But it is a wild ride, and it's when you get to the end like this, and hopefully no one drives a Mack truck through one of our fairways. We're going to look good on TV, and we're not going to embarrass ourselves. And that's from hard work. Cooling it off, being on it, being there. That's why you can't go home on a weekend. You can't be working 5 days a week at the level of this.
Mm-hmm. What have you ever considered other grasses? Like I know that's been kind of a trend. And if you have tried, done some testing, what have been the results?
So if the cool season, we are old Pencross, and Pencross works great here. I mean, even again, not to keep talking about the Canadian Pete, but he was like how tight the greens are. They've morphed into being something completely different. I will talk about Pete again. When he was at Kinloch, we were fed up during 2010, 11, 12. Those are record-setting years. And we looked at Zion Zoysia for the intermediate cut around all the fairways because ryegrass, again, wanted to transition off this earth. So we did a little bit of Zoysia. So what I did is the only thing I've ever played with is HGT intermediate cut, which I probably should just put a capital improvement and change all our ryegrass out to that because it's just a beautiful grass, wonderful. Looks awesome, looks fantastic right now. It recovers, which is great. And then, we've done a lot of zoysia on our roadways where, it's sitting around asphalt, right, and concrete. Why can't we keep good grass there? Well, you know what? We said, let's put warm season there. And then the driving range, which is always like, hey, everyone wants the divots to recover. Well, it can't recover. In the middle of summer, it takes, 2 months for it to even get close to recovery. And we did Bermuda up there. So those are the two things we've flirted with. There are 3 things. The HGT bluegrass has been I've been doing it since 2014. It's a big craze down here because it doesn't get the disease as ryegrass. And then using Bermuda and Zoysia where it makes sense. I know it's a playable surface on the drive range tee, but even Liberty National, Greg put it up there at Liberty National. He put some Bermuda on their tee, and they wouldn't even know any different. So
I mean, the Bermuda on the practice tee makes so much sense because it's like getting the most use in the time where the other grass just wants to die, right? And the Bermuda is just thriving.
Yes, it's great. It's awesome.
So you're 1 week out from the Solheim Cup. We've talked a little bit about how you just want the volunteers to have a good time, how you're worried about your stripes. What's your other biggest hope for the week, Solheim Cup, where you'll be happy with X? Like, what's the other thing that's on your mind?
So, and this is probably what everyone would say, but, you talk to the PGA Tour. We've done some PGA Tour events, which has been great. And all the rules officials with Mark Russell and Rim Tool and all these Steve Carmen back in the days, it's hard. They always come in. No one wants to talk about weather. No one wants to talk about weather. And if they don't bring their rain gear, then they say you jinxed us because you didn't bring your rain gear. Everyone's supposed to, like, the officials are supposed to bring their rain gear, and they look at the weather forecast and it looks like it's good, so they leave their rain gear home and it starts raining. So the PGA Tour rules officials, Andy and Mitch tell you it's impossible to get through 7 days without something happening weather-wise, right? Right now, if nothing changes, knock on wood, nothing changes, it's gorgeous right now. I haven't seen the Sunday yet. If there's a sun on every day, and it's right around the average of 80 degrees with cooler nights at night, it couldn't be any better. It's like Spain. I don't even know if it rains in Spain. We were there. It's like every day was picture perfect. That's what you want, because you want the people that are spending money, spending their time, or traveling from afar to come over here and have a great time, see good golf, have same thing down at the shop, right? Have a good time is what we want. We want them to enjoy Robert Trent Jones Golf Club, the beauty of Robert Trent Jones Golf Club. And of course, we want the U.S. to win because they haven't won in a while. But just something that's competitive and something that's fun would just be fun here. And that's, everyone's going to tell you the weather. It is the weather, because that's what people worry about the most, because it can literally shut down the vibe of the volunteers, of the staff that are all around here, catering, police. It can destroy a whole tournament. So that's the number one thing. And, that's why they like going out west. That's why, you get out to California, it doesn't rain. You get on the East Coast, plus it's better TV times out there too, right? You can have dinner and a cocktail or a beer and a cigar and watch golf, right?
For somebody that works in the industry, the East Coast ones aren't that bad for me, because I could be done with my job by the time dinner and bedtime for a young kid is being done.
Exactly.
I'm flipping on you there. We're all creatures of self-interest,
That's right. There's no wrong. Nothing wrong with that.
So, but all right. Well, hey, we wish you the best of luck. Thank you so much for taking time with us, and looking forward to seeing RTJ on a big stage here next week, or this week when it airs. This week.
We're going to get started on Sunday.
Yeah, we're fast forwarding. We recorded this last week, but it's really this week when people are going to be listening to this. So thanks so much, Scott, for coming on, and best of luck next week.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to another edition of the Friday Golf Podcast. Big thanks to PJ Clark. He's just dominating the podcast production here. So big thanks to PJ for putting this together. As a quick reminder, if you haven't, check out Club TFE. I just was on a phone call this morning about some cool stuff we're going to do in Club TFE next year. So best way, join now, be a part of it for the next calendar year. It's $120 for the year. We do a load of content in there, and we are going to put a substantial amount of effort into improving the member experience and adding member features in the coming year. I'm really excited about where it's going. Check it out at membership.thefriedegg.com. We will be back next week. Garrett, my lovely co-host, he went on a epic trip to Maine this fall, or last week. We're going to talk to him about that. We'll probably do a little bit of recap rundown of RCD and Solheim Cup as well. So we'll be back next week with a couple episodes, but thanks for listening as always, and we'll talk to you next week.